Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is 6 minutes past the hour of noon o'clock. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7, the Chad Benson Show. I am decidedly not Chad Benson. I heard he came dressed like Santa Claus yesterday. Is that true?
Dude, he was to the nines.
Yeah, from what I could tell, not one of your cheap Santa suits.
No, it was not, man. And the boots were shiny.
Wow. Well, anyway, he's off enjoying his holiday, and I am in today all the way till 3 o'clock. And then I think Matt Murphy's still coming in today, so he should be along a little bit. Thank you very much for listening. We got a lot of ground to cover here today. It's the day before Christmas. This is your last shopping day. We're there. I mean, if you haven't gotten it by now, I'm really worried about you because you're behind.
Yeah. Instead of 2,000 people being in front of you at the traffic light, it'll be 3,000.
That's right. Hey, by the way, Ken Weaver, did you get your cookies?
I did, Brother Brian. Thank you.
We made a cookie delivery to the station early this morning, and those are Miss Cabana Wife's very famous chocolate chip cookies.
Dude,
they are legendary.
You and Cabana Wife are two of the most gracious people I know.
Well, you're
and I
very
know
kind.
they're just cookies, but what a lot of people don't know is you guys do a lot more, and I just want you to know it's appreciated.
We're always glad to work with our good people at Super Talk. But they're not just cookies.
No, they're.
I'm telling you, these cookies are. I mean, people rave about these. It's a very unusual chocolate chip cookie, and there is a secret ingredient in it.
Is it magic?
The magic cookies. I don't know if they're magic or not, but there is a secret agreement what I'm not allowed to tell you, but they are quite tasty. I think you'll enjoy.
Oh, I know I will. Yeah. My family may not, but that's because they won't get any.
They won't make them home. That's right. That's right. Good. Good to talk to you, Ken. We'll check in a little bit later.
All right, brother.
I want to get into the economy and talk about how the economy is growing. I think the Democrats, they're out there trying to talk down the economy. I heard it said that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was actually, saying that Trump was destroying the economy. If that's happening, I'm missing the signs because all of the signs have been pretty good. The latest bit of economic news, if you haven't heard it, is that the economy grew by 4.3% in the third quarter, much more than was expected according to CNBC. Let me read some of this. The U.S. economy grew at a much greater than expected pace in the third quarter, boosted by strong consumer spending. People are spending money. Let me just say this about that particular statistic. When people spend money, it means they have confidence in the economy. A delayed report, it was delayed because of the shutdown. U.S. gross domestic product, a sum of all goods and services produced in the sprawling U.S. economy, expanded by 4.3% in the July through September period. We still got, the fourth quarter to go, which is usually a pretty good quarter because people are buying stuff for Christmas. The economists had been polled by Dow Jones, had expected only a 3.2% GDP growth in the third quarter. So that is incredibly good news. There was also a bit of good news in the report that this is not insignificant. This is important. Corporate profits have soared by $166.1 billion, or 4.2%, compared with the gain of 6.8 in the second quarter. So get this, in the second quarter, corporate profits were up $6.8 billion. In the third quarter, corporate profits were up $166.1 billion. That is incredible. That is amazing. The corporations are doing well, and when the corporation's doing well, what does that mean? They can hire people. They can build more products. They can take their profits and reinvest them. We want our corporations to make a profit. That is part of the free enterprise system. GDP, by the way, reflects the total of all domestic spending plus exports. Since some domestic spending is on imported products rather than things made in the U.S., imports are subtracted from the total spending to arrive at GDP estimates. When imports go down, as they did in the third quarter, the result is an addition to the GDP. This is pretty amazing. Here we go. This is a pretty strong story. From the Wall Street Journal. You ready for this? The U.S. economy keeps powering ahead, defying dire predictions. The unrelenting American consumer spins through a sour mood and a cooling labor market. U.S. economy continues to power through trade and immigration shocks of 2025, defying widespread expectations of a slowdown or even a recession and blowing past other developed countries. When Trump says we got the hottest economy, the hottest thing going on economically in the world, that's what he's talking about. We are on fire economically, really. Let's see, go on. One big reason Americans continue to spend on the economy, even though they have some lingering anger about some high prices. More on that in just a moment, okay? I think you're going to find this pretty interesting. AI investment and household consumption, particularly by higher income Americans, accounted for nearly 70% of the third quarter growth. Economists from one organization noted that after the third quarter report came out on Tuesday. We often talk about, and this is what I've always said, we often talk about the $30 trillion American economy being dynamic and a resilient beast. And the gross domestic product data from the third quarter was no exception, said an economist at RSM. The U.S. economy has defied many of the dire predictions from earlier this year, when President Trump took office with big promises to hike tariffs and curb immigration. Many economists slashed their forecast for economic growth and raised them for inflation and unemployment, and they were wrong. Listen to this quote. Almost everyone got Trump's tariffs wrong, though the most dire predictions were made before he backed off his most extreme policies. Instead of recession, the U.S. economy expanded in somewhat unexpected ways. The growth did not come from a boom in manufacturing, as Trump had promised. I think that's still on the horizon. It just takes a while. But rather from consumers at the top, emboldened by record-breaking stock market boom and the build-out data centers that add about $41 billion to our economy annually. So there you have it. We are seeing a lot of things about gas prices going down. Gas prices are part of this. Holiday road trippers are feeling some relief from the pump this year. The average price of unleaded gasoline in the United States has been below $3 a gallon for almost a month. Okay, that's nationwide average. I'm telling you right now, in many parts of the country, it has always been much less than that, including, for a little over $2 a gallon, you can get gas right here in Tennessee, $2.06, $2.11 if you really hunt for it. But it's way, way down from where it was. Fuel prices are down about 7% from a month ago, AAA data show, and have tumbled roughly 43% from the mid-2022 highs when it was near $5 a gallon. That's when we were in the midst of, if you'll remember, runaway inflation and high gas prices. When you lower the price of oil and gasoline, diesel, etc., you are reducing the cost of energy, and that ripples through the economy in a very, very positive way. Just over 40% of those polled said they plan to spend less this holidays. We'll see whether that turns out to be true or not. So there you have that. Now, with all of this good news about prices coming down in a lot of different categories. Gasoline prices are lower. Yes, people are still concerned. I don't want to discount the fact that some people are saying, well, have you seen the price of beef? Yeah, well, that's Beef prices have always been, and I come from Texas, trust me, I know a little bit about this. Beef prices, it takes a while for them to come back. They had to eradicate their herds for a lot of different reasons, and when they did that, they have to now build them back up. That doesn't happen overnight, so it takes a little while for beef to come around, but I think it will come around in very short order, but it's just going to take a little longer. See, Donald Trump is trying to do remarkably difficult things with the economy. He's changing the way our economy is structured in a big way. And those kinds of major transitions take a while for everything to kick in. Okay, so the tariffs. How do you avoid a tariff? If you don't want to pay a tariff price for an imported good, what do? You move the factory to America, right? That's going to happen. You know when it's going to happen? Next year. It takes a little while to buy the property, to build the factory, to get it all up and running, and to transfer all the operations over. That just takes some time, doesn't it? It will happen. Because companies have decided they're going to come back to America and they're going to build these products here to avoid the tariffs. So tariffs, I think, are working in a way that most people didn't anticipate they were going to work. So that's on the horizon. And you know what's else is on the horizon? Refunds. Because of the tax cuts in the big, beautiful bill, you're not going to have to pay taxes on social. You're not going to pay on tip income. A lot of people are going to see a big break from that. Here is the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, talking about what's on the horizon with refunds. And when that money hits your pocket and hits the pocket of a lot of millions and millions of Americans, it's going to, we're just poised for a huge boom.
Well, look, I think Americans are going to feel it. And everything we've done in the past year is setting the table for a great 2026. And we inherited a mess. You had to stabilize costs. Real wages are up. I call it, I'm going to talk about it in my speech tonight, the 3 I's that cause the problems we've seen: immigration, interest rates, and inflation. Immigration, the mass unfettered immigration, 10, 20 million people coming across the border, push down working wages and cause housing prices to go up, rental prices to go up, cause the scarcity. President Trump has closed the border. 2 million people have gone home, so check on immigration. Bond market had the best year it's had since 2020. Interest rates are down, mortgage rates are down. We're starting to see life in the housing market, and rental rates are down about 5%. I expect they'll be down 10 or 15 from the peak. And then 3, inflation, we're working on that. The energy prices are down. Gasoline nationally is now below $3 a gallon. It's below $2 in a couple of states. So I think we're on a very good track on inflation. And I'm also the IRS commissioner as well as the Treasury Secretary. And I can see that the president's signature initiatives in the one big beautiful bill, and I tell you, he fought harder than anyone for these. No tax on tips, no tax on the overtime, no tax on Social Security, auto deductibility. That the bill was passed in July. Working Americans didn't change their withholding, so they're going to be getting very large refunds in the first quarter. So I think we're going to see $150 billion of refunds, which could be between $1,000 and $2,000 per household. Then they'll change their withholding, and they'll get a real increase in their wages. So I think 2026 is going to be a very good year.
I think it's going to be explosive growth. I really do. So imagine you get a $1,000 or a $2,000 refund across the board. Many Americans will see big refunds because when they changed the tax structures and they decided they're going to tax certain kinds of income, nobody went back and changed their contributions. So they've got money coming back to them as a result of that. Big news there. So with money in your pocket there, and the fact that the economy is going to be poised to really explode as all of this investment start to happen, I think it's going to be a nice 1-2 punch. And by the way, going forward, you'll have more money in your pocket because of the lower taxes. When you have more money in your pocket, You can spend it. That's good for the economy. It's good for you. You get the goods and services you want, and Americans' economic engine comes back online. All you had to do was get out of the way. Our economy is robust and resilient if you don't stand in its way. And what Donald Trump has done is he's cleared all of the impediments to the economy, and it's getting better already and poised to be really, really good by about the middle of next year. It's coming. More on this in a moment. 21 past the hour of 12 o'clock. Look forward to that. Always good to work with my buddy Ken Weaver.
Brother Brian.
I
know.
I know. You got big plans for the holidays?
Just having family over and eating a lot and watching. We're going to watch Jimmy Stewart tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And It's a Wonderful Life, and then some other goodies. And then tomorrow we're going to open presents.
Yep. Well, I'm headed down to Birmingham. My sister and my niece lives in Birmingham.
All right.
And her family, and my sister's and her husband are gonna be there. So we're gonna buzz down for dinner tomorrow, and then buzz back. Anyway, I hope everybody has a good Christmas, and be very careful in your travels.
Yes,
we want you to arrive alive and get back here. So we start off 2026 in a good, positive way.
Yeah, you can keep listening and watching us.
That's right, because we're just fun to watch,
and we're real good looking.
Well, one of us is, and I'll let everybody determine who that is. We're talking about the economy, and I do recognize that the economy is not perfect for everyone. Dan Mattis had a great line this morning. There's the economy that they report on, and then there's your economy, and maybe you're not feeling it yet. I think you will. Truthfully, the one glaring problem, and the things that Democrats have found sort of a wedge issue on, is this so-called issue of affordability. I think that's going to fade in the new year, but housing is a problem. Housing for a lot of people is a real bad problem. They can't afford to rent. They can't afford to buy. The American dream of owning your own home is becoming elusive for a lot of people. And by the way, what's the cause of some of that? Immigration, illegal immigration to this country is part of that problem. And those houses, are more expensive because there's more demand for houses, because we let millions of people come into this country. They got to have a place to live, right? Okay, so that's part of the problem. But I think that the Trump administration is capable of getting at that. Here is Kevin Haslett, who works at the White House as the leader of the President's Economic Council, talking about the coming year and what's on the horizon. They understand housing is an issue, and they're going to be on it like a laser beam.
And then the other thing is that we've got lots of great new ideas that we're going to put before the American people this year to make their lives better. The president mentioned in his economic speech from over here at the White House that we've got everybody in the whole cabinet working on trying to get housing to be more affordable. We're going to have a big plan to announce sometime soon in the new year that's going to be really good news for the American people who feel like it's just not affordable to buy a home anymore. Don't forget that under Joe Biden, the average mortgage payment for the typical middle-class family who are buying for the first time a home went up by $14,000 a year. $14,000 a year because of inflation and higher interest rates. And we've got a plan that's going to make that go almost completely in reverse. Already, we've reduced that monthly mortgage payment by $3,000.
Well, let me ask you about that, because one of the ideas that keeps getting batted around and mentioned here in Washington and beyond is this idea of a portable mortgage, that a lot of people, if you got a 3% mortgage, you don't want to sell that house and go back out into the market, freeing up that housing maybe for more an entry-level buyer. Could that be part of the conversation, that portable mortgage?
Yeah, we've got a list of things that we're going to present to the president. I expect, break a little news for you, I expect that most of us are going to be down for a big chunk of the week after Christmas at Mar-a-Lago, going through all the plans for next year. And definitely we have a big list of housing ideas that have been vetted very carefully by the cabinet secretaries to present to the president in a week or two. And we'll see which ones he picks.
Yeah, so there you go. They're on it. And I think, knowing how Trump understands the economy and how he's, the one thing I love about the guy, and I have issues with Trump on some things, but I really love his policies a lot. And the one thing I love about the guy is his ability to look outside the box, to think outside the box when it comes to finding economic solutions. It is now 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7. Time for the news with Ken Weaver. It's 36 minutes past the hour of 12 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 on this day before Christmas. Brian Wilson in for Chad Benson. You're listening to the Chad Benson Show. Let's talk a little bit about the swamp. We'll go to the swamp right away here. Yesterday, the Supreme Court dealt a blow to President Donald Trump by rejecting his bid to overrule a lower court order and allow the deployment of National Guard troops to the Chicago area over the objections of state and local leaders. Now, Trump wanted to send them in there, as he's done in other places, but of course the folks in Illinois would rather have crime and or evil on their streets than to actually solve the problem, so they fought it in the court of law legally. And what we ended up with was a matter before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court went with Illinois. Today is a big win for Illinois and American democracy, says Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker on a post on X. An important step in curbing the Trump administration's consistent abuse of power. Okay. See, this really, it's a difficult thing. It's a very complicated legal concept known as posse comitatus. And it means that U.S. military troops, by and large, cannot be used for policing activities. Now, there are some circumstances where that can be done, where you go in and, for example, and say, I'm going to protect a building that is a federal building. That's okay. But policing activities by the military have long been frowned upon by the courts. U.S. presidents, according to CNBC, can deploy the National Guard under certain circumstances, but guardsmen are typically not permitted to engage in civil law enforcement. So this is a loss. But I'll tell you what the real loss here is. The real loss is to the people of Illinois. The real loss here is to the people in Chicago, where they have runaway crime. That's right. The Democrats would rather have runaway crime than solve the crime problem. Because, every time that they've done this, where they've sent in the military, the National Guard, they have seen crime drop dramatically in D.C. By the way, there wasn't a fight over it in D.C. In Memphis, by the way, there was no fight over it in Memphis. I'm not sure all the Democrats in Memphis were pleased to have the National Guard come in, but you had the blessings of the governor in this particular matter. And by the way, crime is down dramatically. I read some statistics the other day about how many arrests there have been made, how many people have been charged with crimes, how many people, bad people with outstanding warrants have been taken off the street, how many guns from bad people have been taken off the street. So, it's been remarkable, astonishing, the turnaround in Memphis. It's happened in other places as well. So what really blows my mind about this whole thing is that the Democrats, they would rather have crime than solve the problem. But the Supreme Court has backed up Illinois in this matter. Here, speaking of courts, federal judges have struck down gender secrecy policies in California schools. Have you heard about this? A federal judge on Monday struck down California school policies that prevent schools from revealing a student's gender identity to their parents. There are some school districts. I think we even had one or two here in the Nashville area. Maybe I want to say Nashville Public Schools had this policy for a while. If a child says, "I want to be called, my name is Bobby. That's the name my parents gave me, but I want to go by Susan because I feel like I'm a female trapped in a male body." Some schools are not allowed to tell the parents about this, but not in California. Class action suit filed by California teachers and parents sought to overturn policies that barred K-12 educators from informing their parents when students use names or pronouns different from their assigned birth. San Diego U.S. District Judge Robert Benitez, a Bush appointee, ruled in favor of two Escondido Union School District teachers, Elizabeth Marabelli and Lori Ann West, who argued that the school's district policies flatly prohibit teachers from respecting the wishes of parents. The schools are not the parents. How in the world? I mean, boy, I tell you what, if this were to happen to my kid, I would be beyond angry that I was not consulted about this, not informed about it. Who do they think is in charge of that kid? They're not. Oh, I mean, they have some responsibility when the kids are in the school building. But you know what? At the end of the day, ultimately, the parent is the ultimate authority, and parents should not be kept out of the loop of something of this nature. And a federal judge in California has agreed that should be the way we look at it. Parents have the right to be informed. Student loan debt. You remember when, the Biden people were trying to pay off everybody's student loan debt? And, I kept saying, man, this is not the way it is. When you take out a student loan, it is an LOAN loan. You're supposed to pay back a loan. And the Biden people were just, trying to buy votes, and it didn't work for them at all. But they were trying to buy votes and talk about how it's unfair. So somebody takes out a student loan and they pay it back. What a sucker I was. I took out a student loan when I was working on my master's degree, and I paid it all back. I tried to make sure that my daughter didn't have any student loans, that she could get through college without having to take in a student loans. So I did the responsible thing. But no, in the Biden world, you take out a loan from the government and you don't have to pay it back. It was nothing more than an attempt to grab votes from young people, and it was a bad policy. Now, listen to what Trump is doing. You ready for this? You're going to love it. Trump administration, according to PJ Media, is preparing to crack down on student loan defaulters starting next year. This will be interesting because you can bet Democrats are going to flip out about it. The Education Department confirmed it will begin withholding wages from borrowers who fail to pay their student loan debts. The first wave will hit in early January. About 1,000 individuals who defaulted on their student loans will see wage garnishment begin the week of January 7th, 2026. We expect the first notices to be sent approximately 1,000 defaulted borrowers the week of January 7th. The Education Department spokesman told the New York Post the notices will increase in scale on a month-by-month basis. They were given a 30 days head up about the plans to garnish wages. And back in May, the Trump administration moved to restore long-standing enforcement tools that had been sidelined, including the seizure of Social Security benefits and tax refunds from borrowers who defaulted on their student loans. Wage garnishments, officials indicated, would also return after being suspended under Joe Biden. What made me really mad about what the Biden administration was doing was that the loans that they were going to pay off, a lot of them were for people who could well afford to pay off their student loan. They had the financial means to do it. Here's a little pro tip. Don't take out the loan if you can't pay it back. All right? All right. In other political news, I saw this story the other day, and I thought it was very, very interesting. Political parties, after a loss or a win, anybody who's got their act together will do an after-action report. If you win, you do an after-action report to find out what did you do wrong. I mean, what did you do right? And let's do more of the right and less of the wrong. That's the plan. If you lose, it's all about how did we lose? Where did we make a mistake? What were the problems that we could not foresee or overcome? It's just called an after-action report, or some people call it an autopsy. Political parties rarely like releasing the autopsies of electoral defeats because they often become excuses or for score settling or agenda pushing or finger pointing. But the 2024 autopsy is one the Democrats can't touch with a 10 million foot pole for obvious reasons, they write in frontpagemag.com. The core election issue was the economy, and the Democrats had probably still lost, even if Biden had run again, and they had swapped out Governor Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or Governor George Wallace. But you can't get away from the fact that they looked at it was the economy. So, but now the Democrats are saying we are not going to release it because we don't want there to be a lot of finger point. Well, what good is doing the autopsy if you don't widely share the results? Well, anyway, one way or the other, they continue to make mistakes. They haven't learned the lessons of the last election at all. Democrats are divided over how to retake the House of Representatives and the Senate. This story from Hill.com I thought pretty interesting. Democrat lawmakers are battling among themselves over whether they need to review the lessons. Well, no, they're not going to review them because they buried the autopsy. Some Democrats on Capitol Hill are unhappy about Democrat National Committee Chair Ken Martin's decision not to release that autopsy. Brian Schatz, who has locked down the votes to become the Senate Democrat whip in 2027, who is viewed as a frontrunner to someday become the Democrat leader, questioned Martin's decision not to release it. I'm not commenting on that, says Chuck Schumer when asked about it. And so some people think we should have a spirited, open-ended discussion. But you know what? When Democrats are in disarray, when your a political opponent is in disarray, what you do is you stand back and do nothing. You stand back and say nothing. Let them roil in their disorganization. They are still really, really disorganized. From the Tennessee Star, Tennessee Representative Matt Van Epps, the new representative from Tennessee District 7, has gotten his committee assignments. Congratulations. He will be on the Homeland Security Committee. That's good. And also the Space, Science, and Technology in the 119th Congress. Because, he replaced Mark Green. And Mark Green was the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. And so having Matt Van Epps in that, those are pretty high-profile positions for somebody who is a new member to Congress. So congratulations to Matt Van Epps as he starts to figure out exactly how Capitol Hill works. Good luck. I worked for 31 years, and I worked there for a lot of years on the Hill. I'm not sure I ever got it completely figured out. It is 50 minutes past the hour of 12 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 54, almost 55 minutes past the hour of 12 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Chad Benson on this day before Christmas. So, Ken Weaver, before you run off and get ready for the news.
Yes, sir.
How's the traffic out near the airport? Because, there have been some days where they've had some real problems.
Let's look at it right now. I'm not seeing any issue at all, Brother Brian. It is looking good all over the metro area. The only slowdown I'm seeing right now is going westbound on the East Loop up to the northern split airport. It's free flowing.
Yeah, we drove down to the station this morning to deliver cookies, and it was like no traffic whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people, they always say that the day before Christmas is a big travel day. Mm-hmm. I think it's sort of moved a little earlier in recent years.
Yeah, I think so too. I think since school is out this week, I think a lot of people left Friday and over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I'm seeing Briley Parkway, is kind of slow, but the interstates are clear. Yeah, and it always is.
Yeah.
But 40 by the airport, it's clear, man.
Well, you got your people going over to the the Opryland Mall.
Yes,
that's part of that, and people are doing last minute shopping. There's no doubt.
Oh yeah.
So, those places are going to be bad. But, I mean, getting into town and getting back home was – I haven't driven from, bucolic Watertown to the station in 37 minutes in years.
Yeah, I can't believe you made it in 37 minutes.
37 minutes, yeah. Well, we were picking them up and putting them down. But one way or the other, if the road is open, it means you go faster, right?
That's right.
That's the way I look at it, Okay, listen, I want to hit some other news from around the area. This is pretty, well, I think I'll do this story. I've talked about how we had this Supreme Court ruling that said you can't send the National Guard to Chicago. And I talked about how things are getting better around the country in places where they have cracked down, and tried to really, enforce the law, like arrest people, put them behind bars, adjudicate cases, and let a jury of their peers decide whether they're guilty or not. A lot of that had just fallen by the wayside. But now, under the Trump rule, things have changed a little bit. We got new U.S. attorneys making different decisions around the country. Here, listen to this. The U.S. murder rate is headed for a record 1-year drop. Now, we will get the statistics not for a few days, but they get a sort of an early look, and the people looking at them can say, well, if all of the information that's going to file the final report turn out to be accurate, then, it looks like we're headed for a real drop in murder. It's funny. It used to be when I first, years and years ago, started covering police departments in my hometown and some of the places where I worked before I got to the nation's capital. I was what they used to call a cop shop reporter, covered the police department. They would tell you, well, there's nothing you can do about murder. That's not true. If you take bad people off the street, and if you take guns away from bad people, if you prosecute cases, you can see that kind of violent crime go down. The U.S. appears to be headed for the largest 1-year drop in murders in history, according to a well-known crime analyst. That's the conclusion of crime statistics expert Jeff Asher, who says new national data show killings plunging at a pace not seen in modern record keeping. Last month, FBI Director Kash Patel said the 2025 homicide rate will be the lowest in modern history. Independent analysts such as Asher say the data strongly point in that direction. The data currently available through October show that murders are down. Are you ready for this? Nearly 20%. You talk to any police chief, he'd love to see he or she would love to see a 20% drop in the violent crime rate. Axios has reported that drops of nearly 20% in the murders in New York City and Memphis, close to 28%. How about that? Wonder what happened in Memphis that caused that to happen. Chicago also seeing a significant declines in Los Angeles County. The numbers arrive as President Donald Trump made combating major crime a second-term priority. 1 o'clock time for the news with Ken Weaver on Super Talk 99.7.